Ladies and gentlemen, the Kids in the Room podcast. Kids in the Room podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Brought to you by Moo Faces TV.
Woo! All right. Hey guys, welcome to the Kids in the Room podcast. Today we've got Dan Clark on the actual podcast today. Yeah, Dan, what's going on? Tell us what you do. Tell us what your specialty is, man. Like, how are you doing?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm happy to be here. Excited to chat with you today. I'm CEO of a company called Brain FM, where we make functional music to help people get into focus, relax, or sleep, and then stay there. And I'm so excited on how we can use the technology to help people be the best self on demand.
Wow, be the best. So, like, what is the so explain to the audience, like, what is the primary goal of Brain FM?
Yeah, so we live in a world where we're constantly having to change activities, right? We have to do work sometimes and plug in and plug out, so to speak, right? Sometimes our body doesn't feel like working though, or sleeping or relaxing or whatever. What we're trying to do is we're trying to use music and empower it with science to be able to switch your mental state from one to another, easy, quick, within 5 minutes, and then help you stay in that mental state as long as you need to either get better work done, to actually get relaxation or sleep, and really, again, unlock your true potential.
Wow, that's amazing. So how did you do this? Like what was the prerequisite to getting into something like this? Like, how did you start out? What motivated you to do this? Like, what happened? Were you like Einstein sitting in a room and just figured out the sound would actually change people's behaviors, or were you listening to music? Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, good question. So I have a wicked indirect path, right? So, and I think I should start over from actually when I was younger, but it'll all connect, right? So when I was 11, I started doing martial arts, and I was picked on. I was not confident, and martial arts was really a tool that transformed me into being a confident person that was teaching and leading. And I really liked helping people because martial arts was a vehicle to do that, right? And then I started my career. I started building technology companies and accelerating them, and would basically go into something, grow it, and then move on to something else. And it wasn't until I was director of an advertising agency where I realized that I wasn't actually helping people anymore. I was just like, it's doing my job well, but I stopped helping people be their best self like I wanted to. And I started just kind of feeling empty, to be honest. I had a near life or death situation. It made me relook at my life and be like, why does this matter? And I remember saying, I want to find something that can use technology and help people. So I actually came across Brain FM. I'm not the first founder of the company. And I remember looking at it being like, oh, this is interesting. Let me try this. And my first session, I took my headphones out. I was like, what is this? Holy crap. And I was so obsessed with the product and what it did for me that I called them 12 times. I started working for free. And then, long story short, ended up becoming CEO and then purchasing the company. And now we're still on that same track of how do we, help people with technology, be their best self and really, unlock their mental states on demand.
Wow, that's amazing. So what was a near death scenario? Like, what happened, Dan? You like clipped off the contacts.
Yeah. So I had a gun pointed at my face, actually. And I was convinced that it was over. And it really, spoiler alert, like, I'm here still, right? But it made me really put things in perspective that, I was optimizing for money, for financial gain in the past. But if everything ended at that point, what was it all worth it? And it really connected me, I think, spiritually to what do I want my place and my time in this world to mean? And it came back to my roots of just helping people, find their true self.
Wow. So there's a gun pointed at your face, you're just like,
yeah,
you're just like walking around. Somebody puts a gun in your face. Like, how does this happen?
Yeah. So I was I was in advertising, and I was, I think at a club somewhere, and it was, you're at night, all these things. And, that I came into that situation, everything. And, again, worked out. It wasn't that, but in that time it was, people say their life flashes before their eyes. I didn't actually have that. I had, if this is the last moment I have on earth, I looked at my life and said, did I live a good life? That's kind of where I was. And, I think I'm a good person. I think, all this stuff, but in that moment, I felt like I could have done more. And that's what made me move on and discover, like, how can we start using my skills somewhere else and really make an impact?
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. You're out normally, like any young adult would be doing, and having fun with your friends and socializing. Then all of a sudden, you're coming out of a club. You might be standing there, maybe you had a couple, and somebody just comes up to you and just says, hey, freeze or whatever or not. And yeah, that's kind of like, whoa, shit, what happens now, right? So
Yeah.
what happened? So like, there's a gun to your head. Like, what happened? Like, did they shoot? Obviously, did they shoot you? Are you fine? Like, what happened?
No, it wasn't that bad. But we were, they were looking for money, kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, it ended up like we gave the money. We went on, but you never know. And it's just, it's funny actually thinking about this, and you can hear my voice hesitating,
Right.
because I'm actually there now as we're talking. And it's some of those things where it's just super uncomfortable. And even now, even though it's been like 15 years, it still is.
Right.
But that was such an impactful moment that it made me really, put stock into my whole life, like paused everything. And I'm really grateful for that moment now, actually, when I think about it.
Yeah, that's wild, man. I mean, it could have ended up a wrong, way. But you know what?
Yeah.
There's been a bunch of, there's I think this has happened to a couple of people, for example. Like, it even happened to Mark Zuckerberg. Supposedly he was at a gas station in Palo Alto, right in the early stages of Facebook. And I think this was right before he raised capital, or maybe right after he did initially. And he was in Palo Alto. He stopped at a neighboring gas station, and some guy just walked up to him supposedly and, put a gun to his head while he was pumping gas. And the way the story that I remember it as is he literally, he just continuously, he just kept on looking straight and then kept on walking, finished pumping the gas and kept on walking, and supposedly, and just gets in his car and cranks up and drives off. So instead of reacting, he just kept on walking and just got in his car. I guess he felt like, fuck, if it's over, it's over.
Yeah.
He didn't entertain it. He didn't conversate. He just like, all right, there's a gun, move forward, get in my car. Oh, well, it's funny now, right? But it's like those moments could have totally changed, the world, because Facebook wouldn't have probably been the company if he would have been killed at that early stage. I mean, this was before it was open, to the public. This was still when they were in the college years, when he initially got to Silicon Valley. So it's just wild that things like that have happened to different entrepreneurs. And some talk about it, some don't, but these near-death scenarios. And I'm pretty sure at that point, he wasn't even thinking about near-death at that time. Facebook had just got its initial funding, or right before it. And he was just, probably a little bit excited. So he probably didn't think that was going to happen. But yeah, there's some people out there who are punks who want to, grab guns and, use them or intimidate you with them. I mean, in fact of life, this is how the world somewhat operates. So you always got to be careful about that. But I'm glad you're here, Dan. Glad you're here. So
yeah, me too.
Wouldn't be able to have this conversation if it was went differently. But obviously you were meant to be here, right? I mean, there's some energy that still wants you here, obviously, and whether it's to create Brain FM, which obviously it is because you've created it, or you joined into this venture and now taken over the how would you say the push of the company, right? Now you're like the driver. kind of like how Elon Musk wasn't the initiator of Tesla, and now he is. So I think it's kind of a similar play, if you will.
Totally.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's wild, man. Wild stuff, Dan. So back to the some other questions I had for you. So what's the science behind this? Like, how do we know this works, or why do we believe that this is some type of magical or some healing or natural energy, or how does this work? What's the science?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so I guess starting over or starting from the beginning, right? The idea of Brain FM is actually not new, right? It's this idea of doing functional music, so music designed with purpose, right? And actually, the first music was designed for purpose. So you could think of like lullabies that people would sing to their kids. It was purposely made for someone to go to bed. Or people would do war drums, and we would march to battle to these things. And some of that's still used today, right? And then as technology started moving forward, people started doing this with sound healing. There's things, if you've ever heard of them, like isochronic tones or binaural beats, right? And they're all designed with like, you listen to music that's supposed to help you get into the zone and then stay there, right? And what we've been able to do at Brain FM is actually go one step further, and we have these patented technology that adds in these certain kinds of patterns into the music that match the patterns that we have in our brain, and basically accelerates and switches them faster than you would do by yourself. So we can go into the deep science, but it's kind of like when you're running and you have a wind on your back, it just feels easier. And you're able to maybe stay there a little bit longer. That's what Brain FM is doing. And from one level, we're making music that sounds good that you want to listen to. But then two is we're adding in all this really complex science, this patented technology to make it that music that actually affects your brain, that we can see in fMRI, which is measuring your blood flow in your brain, EEG, which is electrical impulses, or actually playing like video game tests to see that you're actually improving in your focus and switching into different kinds of states and being able to control it with the highest efficacy that's been done before.
Wow. So you've actually really tested this with the brain and see how these vibrations or tones have affected people uniquely. And have you seen any correlation to, it actually, solving these real problems? Like what leads do you have to confidently say, hey, look, this is working?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is, users. So, we've been developing this product and growing. We have about 2 million users right now. So, we have a good core base of people that, are actively subscribing and using this on a daily basis. So I think that's one thing. I think another is some of the science that we're just talking about. So a lot of this science actually helped us get a National Science Foundation grant from the government, basically helping us validate, can we help people with ADHD? Can we, do X, Y, and Z to really just use music and empower it, right? And we actually have a study coming out, it's in review in Nature right now, that shows that whether you have ADHD or not, we can actually tailor different qualities of the music to help you get into the zone and then stay there, right? And in that focus zone. And, we're talking about all these categories. But really about how do you give another alternative or an addition to someone to, help get to the next level. So yeah, there's things like that. And what we're really trying to do is actually make it so it's not less necessary tones. It's just more normal background music. So we have jazz, we have lo-fi, we have classical, we have all the types of different genres of music that you'd associate. And what we're doing is we're mixing in these patterns on top of it, so that it still sounds like really great music, but it has these effects that work and are measured. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. You mentioned also, how, ADD or ADHD, how you guys have, been measuring this and detecting the actual effectiveness of these actual vibrations or tones or music to each of your customers or individuals. How long does something like this, since you've tested it, how long does it normally last for?
Yeah, so it actually works as long as you're listening to the music. And it's kind of it's think of it like this: when you hear music that you really enjoy listening to, that you would normally dance, how soon do you want to dance? Right? It's almost immediate, right? Where you're like, oh man, I love this song. That's the same part of the brain that we're acting on. And what we see is it starts ramping. It can take up to 5 minutes for you to switch from, a relaxed or distracted state into something that's focused, and then stay there as long as you want. And then it takes about 5 minutes or so that you can phase out of it, or if you're continuing working, you can stay there. There's this cool idea actually of this optimal stimulation theory, right? And this is kind of what we're following. So imagine trying to focus, and you could do the same thing for relaxing or sleep, but just to stay in the focus category, on one side of this curve is being bored, right? And not really wanting to work today, not having motivation. And on the other side is being hyperstimulated, where you're so distracted with internal events, you have emotions, maybe you drank too much coffee, right? And what we're really trying to do is like trigger that, what we, flow state, which is the middle, and finding the optimal place of being able to work that's not distracted, but having enough energy to be efficient and just work, uninterrupted, where it's just super easy, and finding that magic state.
So what did you mean? You said something about like coffee, which I'm assuming you're pushing towards caffeine. And what were we saying basically on that? How does that, like, what's the extreme versus your middle tone?
Yeah, so basically, maybe coffee is not the right word, but it's having too much distraction. It's having too much stimulation, right? So that could be, like, imagine when you're trying to sit down and get some deep work done, right? And on one end, you're not feeling it today, right? So that's the bored and the not motivated piece. And on the other side would be, you have so many things on your mind, you can't work. So it's, oh man, I got to text back my mom, and I got to send this bill, and we've all been there. We have too many things going on in our head. And what we're doing is we're creating this pattern inside of the music that we know with science is the best pattern to work, the best neural pattern. And as we add it to the music, as you're listening to that, your internal brain pattern actually syncs to the brain pattern we're putting into the music. And then from there, you're actually able to transition into that focus state and then stay there as long as you want, to be able to get, the stuff done when you need it.
Awesome. So walk me through like this whole use case of how I'm actually doing this. Am I listening? I went onto the app, I logged on, I chose the music that I want to focus with, and I push play.
Yep.
And
Yep.
now how am I, I want to do other things, how does that work? Like,
Yeah. So the focus music specifically is designed to do with activities, right? So, right now it's made for really desk work, right? So it'd be just like normal music. You want background music while you're playing. Well, background music right now, we have a bunch of data and evidence to show that it's really distracting. If you're putting on, I don't know, Old Town Road or whatever it is, right? It's catchy, but part of your energy and your brain is actually, being divided, your attention, right? So instead of using regular music, or maybe even using silence, it's putting on headphones and actually just starting to listen and working while you're doing the work you normally would do. So that could be answering emails, it could be studying, it could be writing, whatever it is. And as you're listening to the music, it's a really cool effect where the music actually almost sounds like it goes in the background, right? Like it's you're not really paying attention to it, but it's there. And then we're doing different kinds of audio acoustic techniques like 3D sound and spatial techniques, as well as different kinds of salience reduction, adding in these things. So really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're listening to on our platform. It's all designed to focus you in for as long as you need to be focused.
Awesome. Would you say salient reduction? What is that?
Yeah, so salient reduction is basically the difference between sounds. So when you hear a cymbal clash from silence, if you looked at a sound
wave?
like a waveform, it would spike, right? And what happens is, because we're human and our primary drive is to alert for danger, we have really high salience awareness. So if you hear a gunshot, not back to that, but or if you hear like a car misfire, or whatever, what are you going to do? You're going to turn your head and look. Someone screams, you're going to turn your head and look, right? It's because we're always constantly looking for danger to protect us. In the same way, we're also looking for differences in patterns. So when a truck is backing up, beep, 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 and it keeps going, does that for 5 minutes, you won't even hear it anymore. But when that truck stops, you'll notice. And there's all these things that our brain is designed to do to keep us alive that we've been able to uncover at Brain FM and start putting into layers of our music to add all the things that are really good for your attention and drive your attention forward, but then take all the things that are actually stealing your attention away, so you can, again, get in the zone and then stay there. But at the end of the day, it should be that you find that you can do more work. At the end of your work, you have more energy, right? And then it's more consistent. So instead of sometimes you get a writer's block, so to speak, and sometimes you don't, imagine every single day that you turn on Brain FM when you have a cup of coffee, and you get into that mode every single day rather than just some days. And that's really what we're trying to solve, package, and give to people.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a challenge. It sounds like something that's complex and kind of hard to do. But I believe in music. Music definitely changes the vibe and energy. And I've always told people all the time, like, hey, man, I play instruments. I play the guitar, play drums, bass, and whatever it may be. I'm in the zone. Yeah. And so for me, people ask me like, hey, man, how do do you do like, breath work, and do you do meditation, and like, how do you, relieve yourself or take away stress? And I'm like, well, one thing for me is typically what I've always done is whenever I felt some type of way, or melancholy or any type of like emotion like that or down, is I always felt better when I grabbed the guitar,
Yeah.
and I played a certain tone, and that would just make me totally feel different. Almost like somebody who's going to go ahead and start punching on a punching bag or whatever it may be. And it just does that. Or even if you're beating, you're playing drums, it's definitely, it gives you like I don't know, you feel good afterwards. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
It has some vibration.
Have you ever heard of flow state before?
Flow state? No. What's that?
Yeah.
Explain.
So flow state is this idea that it's that middle curve that I was talking about before, that there's this zone that we get into when we're doing activities that feel effortless and we're no longer thinking to do them.
Right. It's just spiritual or something like that. Or?
Yeah. And this is across the board. So for you, it's guitar, it sounds like. For other people, it's basketball, right? Or sports. It could be video games. It could be,
dancing.
Dancing. Yeah. It could be martial arts. It could be boxing. It's supposed to be the exact threshold between being not boring, being just challenging enough where it takes your attention, right? And also being something that is novel enough. And if you look at the brain when you go into this and you understand flow state, it's actually using the different neurochemicals that actually trigger all of these things. And studies that show flow, right? If you look at like Stephen Kotler and a lot of the stuff that he's written, and the Flow Research Collective and stuff, it's basically the things that people that are able to find flow faster and more consistently in their life, they're actually more successful, right? So you are probably doing it naturally and found that through music you get that, and you're able to find your version of meditation. And other people maybe just meditate or they do these other things. But when you connect to that source, that's the thing that is able to really unlock us and really get us to the next level.
Yeah, man, I totally get it. Yeah, I mean, it's like when you're actually playing, you do get in this meditative state, or this, what you call, flow chart. I definitely can feel that because it's like autoplay.
Flow state, yeah.
Flow state.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And I've explained to people, even if I'm dancing, it's the same thing. It's like autoplay, right? It's like autopilot for my body. I'm the actual vehicle. and it just goes. And so people are like, "Hey, how do you do this?" I'm like, "I have no fucking idea. I'm just going.
Yeah.
It just works."
I like to think so. I get influenced a lot when I'm doing art, right? When I'm designing, graphic design, things like that, or when I'm snowboarding, right? And I'm not thinking, oh, I have to move my body like this. I'm just moving my body along for the ride. And that's I think it's really important to find that. And again, Brain FM is actually a mechanism to help people find their flow, but specifically while they're trying to work or they're trying to relax or actually just trying to sleep. And that's really, again, what we're trying to do.
Yeah, awesome. So have you guys also put this into you know, like other type of like how are you guys kind of starting off with the growth? Like how have you guys grown this? Like you started off from zero, I'm assuming, right? Always, and
Yeah.
then now you're at 2 million, right? So what were some growth, strategies that you guys used to, get this beautiful thing into the market?
Yeah. So I'm instead of me telling you something of everything worked perfectly, let's just talk about all the things that went well and the things that didn't. Right. Let's get into the deep stuff. Um, so I think in the beginning, we found, especially when I came in, there's this amazing technology that, again, I came in skeptical for. I thought that it was because of what I ate or because of maybe the coffee I had or whatever, and I purposely try to break it. So before I even called into the company, I actually stayed up and did an all-nighter, and then I tried to focus again, and it still worked. I changed my diet. I did all these things, and then I looked at the science, and I was like, wow, this is legit. Like I want to be part of this rocket ship. So then once I came inside and we started working in the company, I think a lot of the things we knew we had something that can change the world, but we just didn't know what application it was for yet. So we started trying a bunch of different things, right? We had consumer, and we started launching that, and we started doing enterprise and all these other kinds of things and studies. And I think as a startup and as a company, as you go, you learn by first principles, which is kind of, learning and adapting as you go, right? And as we went and discovered what we're doing is not just, people aren't going to buy us because of the science. They're actually going to buy us because of the experience they have. Like anyone listening to this, they may agree with me or they may be skeptical, but it's not until you actually put on a track for 60 minutes and try to do some work or try to meditate with it or just relax that you really get the aha, like, wow, I feel that, and that's the same feeling that triggered me to become, CEO and stuff. So I think that's first off. And across that, we've actually found that consumer growth is one of the biggest ones. So we have an app, right? iOS and Android app. We also have a website. And in those, you access to all these categories. So it's kind of like Netflix, where you basically say, yeah, I want to focus and I want deep work, or I want learning work, or I want creative focus, right? And then you listen to it as you need it. As we've been able to understand, we're realizing that people really just want a focus switch in their pocket, right? They want to be able to turn it on when they want and be able to do it. And we've actually designed all of our apps to do that. We're really excited about launching some brand new apps that are coming out this year that are really going to take us to the next level. And I think we understand our consumer now very well. And not only do we want to show them and help them get to their focus, but the next level of the app is actually looking at like wearables, like Apple Watches and Oura Rings, and actually measuring someone's body in real time. The stuff that we're doing actually changes your heart rate, your physiological, parts of your body. So we can actually measure all of this stuff. And we're building a product that adapts and learns from you to make you optimal focus for John or, Susie or whoever you are. And that's something really exciting that we're going.
Right. Or Jorge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Right.
We got to be inclusive.
Yeah. And yeah, so there's tons of stuff there. So we've been doing that. At the same time, we've also done enterprise and medical. So enterprise is really cool. We basically sell this to Fortune 100 companies that say, we want to help our employees have better wellness. And we give this in packages to them, and we share them how to use it and all of that. So that's exciting. And then the other thing is medical. So all the stuff we're talking about, again, is measured. We can see it all. So we're actually doing stuff right now. We're doing a clinical study where people use Brain FM before surgery, right? So they're not anxious. They don't have anxiety. A lot of people have never been under anesthesia. And I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's kind of terrifying your first time. You don't know if you're going to wake up, you're going to feel it, right? And we actually are able to beat anti-anxiety medication with just sound, right?
Wow.
So that's pretty crazy. And then on the other side, some of the stuff that we're testing is actually helping people wake up from surgery. So you've probably watched the YouTube videos of someone crying and freaking out and not knowing where they are, right? And it's because of sedatives that we use actually give us anesthesia, amnesia, right? And that when you listen to Brain FM, actually, when you're waking up from surgery, you don't have that effect. You wake up faster. You're actually more conscious, and you're able to leave surgery faster, which is it's just good. So someone else can get in surgery and not wait for you to finish. So, as we're really starting to explore and grow the company, it's, how do we help more people consumer, right? How do we help, the person that's a Fortune, 100 CEO to a housewife in, the Midwest that just wants better sleep or has PTSD from something, and give that to them, and then really grow the company and figuring out all the other ways we can help people in medical and, using our technology for good.
Wow. Some really great stuff, Dan. So, wow, what do I got? There was so much stuff, so much packed information. It was just like so impactful. Yeah. So I think some things I wanted to ask is, where was that? I was going to ask, as you were doing these things with the, with the actual sound, and yeah, I had this one question. Well, no, let me back it up.
Yeah.
Let me back it up and let me speak on this. You mentioned something about how you guys were going into, the whole space of, wellness. And then also you mentioned something that you guys are going into, the space of, doing, testing with wearables technology, which is interesting to me because I was the head of design of a startup where we did this literally 3 years ago. And what was interesting about it is, I wasn't in the biospace at the time. And I was like, just got out a bunch of startups that I had, founded and things like that. And I got into this one startup. It's called Biomarker. And basically what we were doing, and we had a lot of top, our CTO was his father was like this, great neuroscientist and stuff like this, who won all these awards and did all these TED Talks and stuff like that. And also the CEO was, his father came from a top medical background as well, dealing with the brain. And it was a really cool company and great idea. But when I actually opened up Brain FM, it reminded me of some of the walkthroughs that we were actually doing, because it's doing, and this is why I was going to ask you earlier, were you guys moving into the wearable space? Because these are some of the similar things that, I was designing and exploring earlier on. And I remember that there was a bunch of unique scenarios, like unique onboarding that we actually tested out for different types of areas of focus, right? And we kept on going around with different terminology. Is it area of focus? Is it a challenge? Are we baselining here? And then we're going to test it for this period of time. And then we give you a before and after to kind of see how these supplements would affect you. And we were doing it based off of supplements. We weren't doing it off of basically sound. We were doing it off of supplements. So there's 30 billion people who take supplements yearly. They wanted to see if these supplements were actually working. Instead, most people were just going on different types of blogs online and reading what actually worked or getting recommendations from doctors and things like this. And so you have biohackers, you have these different assorted groups, or these life change makers who got to this point where they felt like they need to change their health habits, and they started taking these supplements, and they wanted to know which ones work. And so what we were doing is giving them a before and after of how these supplements were, effective on their body. If it was sleep, if it was, for wellness or whatever it may be, there would be a certain amount of actual areas of focus you can actually choose. And so when I was going through Brain FM, I was like, man, this just feels like So this sounds like, it feels like a familiar experience. It's amazing how, we when we go through these scenarios, we have these similar, energies of how we're exploring our design process. And so I was like, oh yeah, you choose your area of focus. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. And, but I didn't see, when I started thinking about the wearable technology, I was like, okay, the unique onboarding is not as in depth because there's no onboarding and there's no wearable technology that we're actually testing. And then we're also probably not testing supplements. So maybe there's not a need for that. All we're doing right here is just sound. And we're not debunking if it's working or not, or if it's improving them. We're just basically saying, listen to this and this should actually help them and they should be able to feel the difference themselves. Is that kind of correct?
Well, I think that's kind of where we are right now, right? Is being able to you listen to this, you should feel the difference. You should notice it in the work that you're doing, right? But as we move on, the really cool thing about wearables is that the more data that we have, the more we can match it to what we're trying to get someone to. So for example, that neural pattern that it's well understood in neuroscience what really good focus is that we're trying to get people to. If we can do that and then see all the other things that someone with that neural pattern has, like what their GSR is, which is your skin temperature, what your heart rate is, what your HRV dips to, all these things, we combine it all together, we can then adapt it in real time to make corrections. And that's what's really cool about doing a digital product is, so, Sam comes in, right? Could be a man or a woman, not sure. But Sam comes in and he or she basically puts on Brain FM and they connect their wearable. Again, this is not what we have, but we're moving towards, right? And the cool thing would be like, I want creative flow. And then we say, okay, cool. Well, let's start here. We know that baseline, based on their wearable data, that Sam is bored right now. So we need a music that's inspiring, energizing, and exciting. But at the same time, we also need to have something that's not too stimulating. So we add in our music that sounds good. We make in-house from composers. We add in the different kinds of patented technology to help you get there faster. And then we realize that actually Sam's responding too well to it, and he's now too distracted. We see that from the wearable. We adapt the music to something else, and then he comes or she comes down, and then perfect zone every single time he gets in creative. And then we learn that, oh, wow, Sam needs this to get going. We'll be able to get there faster and faster and faster. And then all Sam has to find is music he or she enjoys listening to, and the magic take care of itself. And that's where the product is moving towards. We're, I would say, 70% of the way there. And I think that's the end result, what is really going to help people.
Right. Totally. I get it. And so I think that's pretty much the difference, the biggest difference of your direction of a product versus the product that we were working on is that it's not debunking supplements, right? It's really focused on, music and how that actually works. And it's not really debunking if it's, did it work or not, or et cetera. It's just more of a natural feel. Did you kind of self-analyze yourself and assess, if it worked or not. So it's kind of like that. I would say that I think that's really cool. And you also mentioned some other stuff about like how the AI would adapt itself and, progress as it grows, how it would start identifying behavioral patterns. And, it feels almost like it's like a Facebook feed where it kind of knows, your habits and who you are. And so you can just literally turn on whatever music based off of the wearable technology that you're leveraging. So if you're using the Apple Watch, if it's your heartbeat rises or something else like that throughout the music, or it lowers and things like that, you're detecting these different variances, and then you're going in and changing the actual music to compromise or to uplift that pattern or to lower it, whatever it may be.
And we could do that every second, and just keep moving, make sure we're on the path. So that's what's cool. We got the instant feedback, and then it's really a closed loop system. And that's, that's the exciting thing there.
I think like Dan, and I want to say this real fast. I don't want to skip this.
Please.
I want to say this really fast. Where I also see some leverage on this is like how this could be kind of cool. If this can be utilized, I know it can be utilized because it does this naturally for me in another way. I haven't tested it, but when you're listening to regular music, if somebody turns on Journey versus, Lil Wayne, and those types of energies can totally change your vibe. We're doing this naturally when we're in our cars, when we're playing DJ, right? That's the point of DJ is when a DJ, a really great DJ can, they can harness these energies and make you kind of feel like you're having like a great time. It can change the time it can basically make this experience the best time of your life, or not, based off of how the DJ can, pick up those energies and enhance those vibes. If they choose the right songs, your night just feels great. Right? They choose the wrong songs to switch to, it just can go up and down. It's like, I want to go home.
Yeah. So I think you're right. This could definitely be used for understanding more about like, an audience in a crowd and or even like, what you're doing in the car. The one caveat I would say is that we make all of our music in-house, right? And the reason why is because we've actually found that for these different moods or these mental states that we're trying to augment, that if you use existing music that was designed for enjoyment, like art with a capital A, then what happens is that we're not getting the effects as quickly as it normally would take. So it's think about, like, you could do this with regular music, but it takes you an hour to get there, or 45 minutes or whatever. Or maybe you can only do it for an entertainment purpose, right? And what we're really trying to do is make it for a functional purpose, like you can actually get an output. And that is part of adding in this technology. So we call that neural phase locking, and it's actually when you're listening to music, the different parts of your brain start syncing together and they start lining up. And if we just put that on Coldplay right now, and we put the amplitude modulations on that, then what's going to happen is that music's actually going to sound really weird, or it's just not going to work as effective because, focus switch in your pocket is, I'm here in 30 seconds. I'm ready to go. Let's take on the day. And if we say, okay, we can still get you there, but it's going to take 10 minutes, it's a different product altogether. But I agree, there's definitely room in the market for an entertainment portion of that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And where I was kind of going with it, Dan, was like, I could see like, if you can, further that technology and even, provide even slight enhancements, how that can be sold to companies like Apple, Spotify, as some type of data science technology that has this reference where it can enhance people's moods, even selling that to record producers. Hey, we can produce this new type of music that can enhance people's moods.
Yep.
We can get people to the concerts and enhance their mood. Like there's science behind that. I mean, people will buy that shit. They'll buy it. Yes, they will. And it also will work too. There's a science behind it. If you can prove science behind it, people are all into that stuff, like, oh, really? Especially people who are creatives, people in the arts, they always want to enhance their experience and they always want to be knowledgeable about some new technology that, can enhance things. And if you can get into another space too, as well, where you can use the same layer into the entertainment industry where it is, even if it slightly can enhance people's mood, it doesn't have to do it dramatically. If it slightly does it, there's a claim. It enhances the experience.
Yeah.
Now you've got people hooked. People are like, oh man, we went to this concert and they were using the whole Brain FM technology, man. It had us like all in the zone and we were just enjoying the concert a little bit better. That's all it takes is a slight tweak and it's a whole market.
It's interesting. I really like this because, I think I was talking about it from mental states and now we're talking about mood, but they're both appropriate. And I think that's, exactly. That's a fun thing to think about because we can definitely do that. And we're currently working on a few things with a few people, but we can't talk about that.
Yeah, you can't talk about it. But I'm a product nerdy guy, so I'm all about innovation and product and trying to look forward to where these things, can go. And where I can see that big opportunity is not to say the opportunity right now, because the whole health and wellness and things like that, those are amazing things. But I also think, like, I don't know, I always try to think of like how you can scale it massively. When I'm looking at, maybe it's the founder in me. How can you scale this to, even bigger, to investors' eyes, right? Where they can say, not that it's not already big, because it's already big in its own realm right now. I can see that growing
I hear
massively.
you.
The whole health and wellness is huge, especially after COVID. These times are crazy.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
when you can think about, there's other crazy, cheesy, nice looking, chunky, steak, whether it's Norsat, sprinkling salt over it. It's just like an amazing exact. I had to do Norsat. I had to do it.
Yeah.
When you look at that other vertical that you can, take advantage of, I think it's almost massive because, I don't know. I just think, like, from knowing how people are in the entertainment industry, they're always very hungry for knowledge and doing something new. And now the new sexy is technology. The new sexy is technology, right? The entertainment industry loves to be the one person who, and maybe it's also a cultural thing. They want to be the new, or the first person onto something new. Oh yeah, we're using this new technology. And, they want to sound like they're intelligent, and not to say that they're not, but it just gives them this extra, appeal. Like, we're using a new technology for our music now. It causes people to, be more focused, and it's, gets rid of ADD, and it has this slight, overlay where it can change the mood of the crowd, when we add this type of technology on top of it. And it's just like, maybe now, how do you do that? I don't know. That's where the scientists come in, right? That's where the data scientists come in, and, the brainiacs who are focused on this core product. But I know, if there's an opportunity to leverage that technology, which obviously I believe there is, and you do too, obviously, there's a big market over there, because so many people, even Apple and things like that, once you start selling that type of stuff to the people in the industry, whether it's one big person who's a big producer who gravitates and starts understanding that, then that kind of just takes off, and then the industry follows. And even like companies like Apple start following, because now these other people have used this for the concerts, or they use this for their music. And guys like, Kanye West, those are the kind of guys who would be influential enough and would be a sponge to this type of technology, and would be absorbed. Like, oh yeah, Dan Clark walks over to Kanye West, says, hey Kanye, we've got this new technology. If you want to get involved, it does this. That type of guy would be like all over it. He'd be all over it. He'd be like, oh, really? Tell us more about it. Oh yeah, this is crazy. We can put this in my music. Now you just have this thing that goes on, and people can't figure out what it is. Now you're blowing this up. You're talking about how this technology works. He's spreading it around. Yeah, I met this guy named Dan Clark. He's amazing. He's at Brain FM. He brought this technology to me. He's going to be your own, your own little market media guru, right? He's doing it, organically. Now people are just all tuned into this. Now Apple wants a bite, right? It wants a bite out of the Eden, right? The Garden of Eden apple, right? Apple wants one. So I just think that, like, there's so much opportunity just even in that perspective of where Brain FM can actually take it, not just even in the whole health and wellness. And I think it's like an automatic assumption that you can take it into like the whole health and wellness thing. And I think because obviously I feel like that's closer to where it's targeted right now, ADHD and the medical, usage of those, which I think is always a great way to start off with technologies like this. But as it advances, I definitely see like a crazy overlap of where just this technology can be leveraged, just like Elon Musk, he does with, his AI technology. Now he's able to branch that same technology. It was actually, they're a technology company, not just a hardware company. They're a technology company or software company, right? They create great software, right?
Yep.
And in the same way, if that can be used, obviously, with your model, I could definitely see it being like a really cool new thing. And even as you were talking earlier, like festivals and things like that, a lot of young children and kids and whatever, and older adults like to go to these festivals, Burning Man, things like that. And if this experience can be explained that it's going to do that, even if it doesn't do it 100%, just a little bit, this placebo effect kicks in, where people are just like, yeah, man, I can feel it.
Yeah, I think all those things are possible. I think and for us, it'll be really exciting to see some of the stuff and how we grow in the future. Right now, to get there, we have to nail what we're doing now, and I know we are, and we're about to. And then really where does that take us is going to be left to, I guess the future. It'll be really fun to see, how we can do it, because at the end of the day, the whole crux of this is we can use music that people have used for as long as humans been around, right? Thousands of years. And we can use technology to make a better service for people. And that's what we're trying to do. And I don't know the end of that, to be honest. But there's a big category for it, like you're hinting at.
Yeah, definitely a big opportunity. I feel 100%. One thing I also wanted to chime in is like, have you heard of like these these certain tones or tuning of music that supposedly helps you focus or and makes you feel differently. Like there's certain numbers. I think they say like Nikola Tesla used like certain numbers and things like that. Have you heard of this technology or this type of usage?
Yeah, so this is really in that binaural beat stuff we were talking about before. So it's all about different kinds of hertz,
Yes.
right? Which is the amount of times a frequency is in a certain amount of time, right? So how fast it I guess is oscillating, right? And what's interesting about that, right, is this is actually invented like 30 years ago, right? And people have been using that. The way it works is that you have one ear, and so isochronic, binaural have a little bit different, but the more popular one is binaural. And the idea is you play 1 hertz in one ear and 1 hertz in the other. And if you look at your brain stem combines those hertz, it creates an amplitude, and then that cascades throughout your brain, right? What Brain FM is doing is actually it's taking that to the next level. So we're actually putting the amplitude directly into the music. So instead of it starting in your brainstem, it actually starts in your higher cortical functions. I know we're getting into science, but what's really interesting about it is we're kind of continuing that stuff that's already been tried, right? And while a lot of people have amazing success on binaural beats, if you've done that before, you're going to love Brain FM because it's basically all of that with new bleeding edge neuroscience. And we have neuroscientists on our team that work here because we're like, how do we make this better every day? How can we make this better? How can we improve it? How do we go from, something working in 10 minutes or some of the early tones that you're talking about? They said, hey, do this for 3 months and then it'll start working. That's ridiculous. I want this now, right? And that's what we can do now. In 30 seconds, it starts. And then 5 minutes, you actually see the activity change and you should be able to feel it. And then in another, 5 years, maybe we'll be doing some other things. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. So yeah, that's kind of where Brain FM is today. It started from that.
Yeah, totally. I just think like, being able to measure that and to increase the efficiency of that is, will be the most awesome thing ever. Is like, how can we increase this? Because I think previously, a lot of these are just like, they're not measuring them. You go to YouTube or you go download it or whatever it may be, whatever source you want to use, and you listen to it, but there's no type of way to enhance that or to measure the efficiency of it. You're just like, it's more emotional. And at least you guys are, in the background, have some data or gathering some data eventually to where you kind of, or you're testing out the actual beats and gathering the knowledge, then putting it live. Whereas I don't think when these things are posted on YouTube and things like that, they're just, tuning it, I'm assuming, to the hertz and just uploading it. Right.
Yeah. And they're using it because they're basing off everything everyone else has done. So we've probably spent like $2 million on science, right? So we run thousands of people through studies and experiments. We rent all these really scientific equipment like the fMRI scanners. So it's this big magnet that spins around your brain. It's like a couple $1 million, right? And we can only do that with labs that are literally testing, how to fix Alzheimer's or other stuff, right? So it's really advanced things. And really, all to say is we just want to make a better product to help people to make it faster and really go to the next level,
Yeah, I do. I wonder, like, also, I'm getting really in this exploration mode, right? This ideation. So for me, I'm also wondering, like, how can this be, leveraged in some way in the future where it can be useful for probably like, early any type of like
Neurological?
neurological,
Yeah.
yes, um, uh, illnesses, right? So, for example, that was a tongue twister for a second. I think I needed to listen to Brain FM
Welcome
really
to my
fast.
list.
Need to listen to
Yeah.
Brain FM really fast to get that focus back. But yeah, there's different like neurological hacks that I was thinking like, where this also might be leveraged somewhere or possibilities in the future as well as like, if someone has like, could this be used in some way to prevent, illnesses like Parkinson's and, MS and things like that. I know that might sound like, fringe right now, but, I believe, hey, what are we looking at? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually not fringe. It's actually being used right now. So some of the stuff we're doing in medical that we're starting early on is people use this for, we talked about ADHD, but also autism, Asperger's, other kinds of mental diversity. We have a big community of people that are using us for that. Because again, it's all about regulation, right? And finding that magic zone. And we're all human, and that's why it works. So that's something. There's also really interesting stuff on this with actually mental decline, like dementia or Alzheimer's. And there's actually a landmark study that just came out from Harvard, which shows that if you play amplitude modulations, which is our core patent technology, to mice, then it reverses Alzheimer's. And you're like, cool, mice, great. Well, then they did it on people too, and every single person had a reduction in a reduction in Alzheimer's, increase in mental acuity, which is amazing. And we're still like, what comes up for me when we talk about this stuff is like, Brain FM's mission is to really explore that, but at a higher level, like humans, we actually know more. So my neuroscientist, he's super smart, from Harvard and MIT. He tells me we know more about Pluto than we know about parts of how the brain works, right? Still in 2022, right? And we're still learning about it now. So what's really exciting is that we get to play a role in helping people and building a great product around that, but also really discovering like, how does the brain work and why does it work this way? And there's some really cool things that, again, we're working on that I can't disclose right now, but there's a lot of interesting things on how can you use science to make us better in every way. And, that's what human race is doing.
Yeah. It sounds like some, I think we're channeling some inner Michael Jackson, make the world a better place again.
Definitely.
Heal the world. Yeah, no. Seriously. I agree. And I think it's amazing. And I think like, I don't know, it brings me, Dan, into some other interesting, science and discoveries and questions and hypotheses in the past. And it goes back to, how sound can be leveraged, because there's a lot of ancient, structures and theories that we have that how sound was used in the past, whether it was the ancient Egyptians, the ancient, Sumerians or ancient Mesopotamia and things like that, how they used sound in the past to leverage or even to heal. And there's been some theories that some of these, civilizations were using sound in amazing ways, even like to, move, there's these theories of even to move stones through sound or even to, use it as ways to, break down, walls or whatever it may be. There's been some interesting things on how, past sound explorations in the past ancient histories were actually leveraged. And I wonder, have you guys thought about, or even tested or seen some type of like things like this? I know this might sound fringe or on the other angle, but like, how can that be measured? Like, have you guys discovered some things? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're constantly trying to play with different things that make sense or we don't know, to like really understand more. So like, we really believe in science first is, creating hypotheses and then testing them. Right. So, as far as I'm trying to think of something fringe that may be here. But I think really it's just, uncovering why do we react the way we do, right? Why? Like, what's interesting is why is all relaxing music in the world all sound like spa music, right? Is it because we think that's what it should like, or is it because it sounds like nature? You know, and what we're trying to do, we have the answer to that. But what we're trying to do is really understand all this stuff to then be able to allow us to learn more and then apply it and then do it again and do it again, and eventually, hopefully, we'll learn, you know, about that. I don't know about moving stones, but maybe, you know.
Yeah, got to move the
Yeah.
stones. Yeah, no, I was just saying because I mean I know there's a lot of hypotheses around this that I mean obviously I don't think you guys have solved this because I mean if you guys did do this, this would be some amazing technology. But I always
Yeah,
wonder
you
like
know.
how yeah right because everybody would be yeah. But I always wonder like how far we when we're testing out sound, are there some ways that you guys have discovered how to manipulate sound to manipulate heavy structures or or
Gotcha.
move things because you know what I mean in that way.
Yeah, so I know that there's people working on that, but that's not our main focus right now. It's more about like the neurological effects. But I know that there's actually a lot of really cool things being. I mean, that's what noise canceling headphones are, right? It's sound technology. It's just in a different way. So we think of ourselves more of like a bio sound technology, and then the other ones are probably like hardware or other machinery. Um, I was hearing actually something recently how when they pour concrete, they actually, use sound waves to like vibrate everything. So it removes all the air bubbles, right? So the concrete is actually stronger. So there's tons of people that are really working on how can we use the things that we already know and then enhance them. And I think the world is going to be really different in, 5 to 10 years. Just think about the next level of, um, what's after sound canceling, right? I don't know, but it's gonna come someday, and it'll be really exciting when it gets here.
Yeah, it could be. It's probably going to be Brain FM, right? Something like this, a layer of that, man. I definitely, I could
It'll
see
definitely
it.
work with Brain FM.
I
Yeah.
could see, I could see the technology, leveraging that for sure. I definitely can see it, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. So right now, how big is the team?
So we have about 12 people full time, and then maybe 15 to 20 contractors that are working with us.
Are we remote, or what's that looking like?
We're mostly remote, but we have a New York team. So we have an office here in New York as well.
Awesome. So right now, you guys have a team out of like when did you guys actually create this again? I want to step and touch on that too as well. When did you guys create this? How long have we been doing this?
Yeah, so the company was originally created in 2015. And then I came into the company in 2016. And I took over in 2018, actually. So, from then we're like, how do we, really get to the level of creating all of these things, exploring all of them, and then doubling down on what's working. And I think we're finally at that level of figuring out, hey, we're working. Let's go. Let's charge this, and scaling the team and the company too.
Right. And how much, you guys, how much did you say you actually raised? I think you were at what was it, 3 million, or was it more than 3 million right now?
As far as we've raised, so we don't talk about that publicly, but we've raised more than $1 million.
Awesome. I just wanted,
yeah.
I wanted to personally dig into your runway. That's what I was thinking, because
fair.
I know, at Biomarker, we were doing a lot of cutting edge things at the time, but I noticed the biggest thing I was always telling the CEO, and this was his first, startup. I mean, it was profitable when he was doing like a white label thing. It was B2B, but then once we went to consumer, he hired too many data scientists, and and you need data scientists, but I felt like it was too early to hire that many data scientists early on, and it didn't match with his runway. And I'm like, hey man, you might want to watch this because, what's your runway? He's, oh no, we're fine. But actually he wasn't fine. He actually was running out of money. He hired way too many data scientists, and he wanted to get the best to where he actually ran out. And so there was a beautiful, amazing idea that could have been utilized and leveraged, and and been a really great, big brand. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen because he ran out of money. And so that's one of the biggest things, is like when people have these amazing ideas, when they run out of money and capital, that's what kills them. But I like how you guys have utilized things like redeeming like referrals and, podcasting and things like that. I like how you guys have, ventured off into this perspective, because this is a way also to increase profitability for the company and also get awareness out. Right. And I'll definitely be talking about that here on this podcast for sure. I think it's a really great technology. I think it's cool. It's definitely something that I would actually wear it on my sleeve and talk about it on this show. Really not into taking on different, types of sponsors and things like that if I don't think it aligns. But this is something that definitely aligns with the actual show. I've been really picky on that. And I think it's a great technology. I think you guys have a huge opportunity. And I think when you start talking about other investors here in Silicon Valley, I think their biggest thing is, and I'm very sure this is don't fuck it up.
Easier said than done, but yeah, definitely working our best over here to make sure it happens.
So I expect to see you, continuing to do this whole Reid Hoffman, jumping off the, building while you're assembling that plane and, kicking butt, man, and making things happen with this technology. So, right. I also got a whiff of it that you guys told me that you guys were updating your website. I loved it. It looked really nice. Amazing job. What's next for Brain FM? Like, what are some things that you might want to share with the audience, and what's next?
Yeah. So I think next is just doubling down is, finding what works and giving people the tools that they need to find the aha, right? How do we make it so that, if 100 people sign up and try Brain FM, how do we make it so that, double or ideally everyone has the aha moment, right? That they get, I see it. I can feel a difference. And I think that's where we're putting a lot of our energy, right? We're hiring a ton of people in product, ton of engineers to really ship, to really experiment, to really understand, make it better for the user. And then at the same time, deliver on some of the other things we've been talking about, some of the wearable stuff. Maybe we should chat after this about that. But, really figuring out, again, let's package this. I agree with you. Like, this is amazing technology. We can't F it up. We got to do it the right way. We're kind of doing it, I think, in the right speed is also important. So not too fast, not too slow, because some startup-y things is go, 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 go. But unless you know exactly where you're going, your company, it doesn't work. And we've taken our time in developing a technology. This technology has been being developed for like 20 years. We're able to use it today. And now it's how do we expand this technology for another 20 years? But then how do we build this product so that in 20 years from now, we're a household name that people use all the time, from their parents to their kids. And that's the mission that we're on. And we're closer to the end than we're at the beginning, which is the exciting part.
No, totally, man. I 100% agree with what you're doing and what you're actually speaking on. But one thing I learned earlier on when I first started creating stuff, man, I was always a hackerpreneur. And hackerpreneur. I would just create shit.
I like that.
And fail and then break stuff. My mom actually, she coined me as Mr. Fix It because I didn't fix anything. I actually broke a lot of shit.
That's how you figure out how it works, right?
until I fixed it. I broke a lot of things. I got better. Blowing up $400 TVs. Yeah. A lot of restrictions. So I had a lot of time to rethink about these things and figure out what I did wrong and how I can do it better next time and get in a longer deadline of punishment. This is me. Don't be like me, kids. I think it's like awesome, but what I was going to dig into on that, it was like, I always like to think about products in a perspective of like, how can they be sexy? Right? How can they be sexy? Because I've always seen, I would do all types of, wacky little experiments as a kid. And I would talk to people. I was talking about like terraforming as a kid. I was doing experiments in my house. I was like, I wonder how you could terraform things. And that'd be cool to do Mars. And I was talking this stuff when I was like a kid and playing around with like, ragu jars and throwing water and sand in there and basic elements that I thought, and see if that could actually cause something to grow in there and not open it for like a year or two. I would do weird little wacky things like that. I would actually grab different game systems and turn them into, TVs and, see if I can, play different like DVDs in them and things like that off of, a battery and put it in my book sack and bring it to school. And one thing I always learned from these things, even down to my earliest startup, I would say, which was like kind of basic, was, selling candy, right? Was figuring out these elements of business and what sells. And, one thing I've learned is technology is cool, but when technology can be leveraged as sexy is when it kind of takes it on a whole nother world. And what I mean by that is I would do these little wacky things and then people would like ignore it. Okay. What are you, that's silly. Right? Or they wouldn't even pay attention to me. But then once I added a sexy element to it, if you will, people were like, oh, wait, what's that? Oh, you can put this DVD in there. Oh, that's not a good DVD. Oh, what's that? What's that DVD? Then you're selling candy. Okay, you can get these cool people over here. These type of tactics is really what caused a lot of product scaling. I think maybe it's not just about it being practical and useful. I'm saying like also adding a sexy layer to it to scale it faster in certain ways. I've always seen these ways, these type of methods to work. When you look at Apple, they built great technology and great hardware, but what was their key to excelling the market? It was they made it sexier. They made the laptop sexier. They made their software and hardware sexier. That's what they did. Overall, they didn't just Steve Jobs just didn't put something together. He made it there was an experience in the actual hardware, right? And also the software and the actual UI, right? So these things mattered. And when we're looking at Elon Musk, he's doing the similar things. These type of like, how do you make my nerdy little technologies seem cool?
Yeah.
That's an extra talent. But yeah, I definitely, I think Brain FM has like some really great technology. And I always look at, I think you guys are, making it sexy already. I'm always looking at opportunities of like how you can make it more sexier, right? And that's where I was coming to this whole, Kanye West and these guys and the industry things, because they would just like drool over this stuff because they're always looking for the next cool thing, that's better than the other guy. I think it's part of like this type of like music culture of like who's got something new. It's this competitiveness.
Yeah. I mean, we have a few things in the works that I can't talk about. But if Kanye is listening to this and he wants to reach out to me, feel free.
For sure.
And yeah, we're gonna see. I think we definitely have. I think you're right about sexy, right? Like figuring out like how do we make this so that it's the cool thing, right? It's I want this, I need this. And we have a few things that we're working on, and then I'm sure that we'll discover along the way. And what's really cool is actually a lot of our users they're super fans. So they say, hey, I really want this. What about this? And that's actually a really cool thing.
Great
we got
signals.
all these people saying, yeah, it's great. It's great to see that. So, now it's just saying, okay, well, what do we say yes to? What do we say no to? And what do we say, and this is the hardest part, not yet to? And I think now it's figuring that out, having a good system and just cruising, So, yeah. I mean, we'll come back in 6 months. I'll let you know how it's going.
Yeah, that definitely. I mean, great things take a long time. Rome wasn't built in a day, so I definitely think this is one of those things. But definitely for sure. Yeah, and if you ever want to try to reach out to Kanye, you feel like you got that level going on, let me know. I do know some people that know him and work with him, so there's always an option there. But that's another story for you guys. Yeah. But yeah, man. Thanks, Dan, for coming on the show. It's been amazing. Great conversation. Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, tell everybody how they can actually check out the website and more.
Yeah, so people can just go to brain.fm, right? Or go on the iOS or app stores, brain.fm. Depending on when this episode is released, we are coming out with some new stuff. But it's not about the product. It's more about the music, the fundamentals. So I really encourage you not to just listen to this and be like, okay, cool. Like actually try it. Put on headphones, sit down with something you have to do to work and go. And that is when you're going to experience the stuff that I'm talking about, the stuff on, why I'm so passionate about this, and why 2 million other people are really passionate too. So yeah, try it out and let me know how you like it.
Yes. I actually did listen to it for a couple of minutes. I got distracted, and it wasn't the app's fault. I got distracted as soon as I'd opened up and I played it, and then I got distracted and I had to do something because I'm actually going, I'm about to travel to Greece and Turkey this week. So
Exciting.
and I just finished with the whole COVID thing and the lockdown, and so you can't leave, and you need that approval of the negative, and not positive. So you need all that stuff. So I was right in the middle of that, and I was getting this conversation. Hey, we needed. Okay, so I got distracted. I should have turned on the ADD one. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, man, it's been great having you on. Definitely want to check out the progress of this. So just hang on for a couple of minutes. I'm gonna pause this and stop this and make sure we got everything recorded. And I'll tell you offline the next steps. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here. So much fun.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen,
The Kids in the Room podcast. Kids in the Room podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Brought to you by Move Faces TV. Let's go.